the cornerstone of comprehensive immigration reform is a fair and just temporary transnational workers program. All our guest workers programs in the past have deteriorated into indentured servitude. They have exploited workers. They have not served the American economy either, because if you exploit people, that depresses wages across the board, even for American workers. So we need a very well put together transnational workers program that has oversight at the source country and at the receiving country. At the source country, so that we end the abuses by corrupt recruiters, and so that recruitment is regulated, and so that the workers can realize their objectives to come here, work, go back with savings, and they would have an incentive to go back. You can establish an escrow account that when you return, here's your money. So this can provide the incentive for the workers to come here, work, go back home, return perhaps the following year. Once they've been here a few times, they have a good record, they should have a path to legalization. So that's the mechanism to guarantee that we're not going to find ourselves in this position again in the future, having a lot of undocumented people and a lot of crises. And it fosters circular migration, which is another big issue, that the enforcement-only approach that we've taken has backfired as well, because we have closed our border so that people are not leaving. And I would love to show you a graph that I've put together with figures from the Department of Homeland Security, from the Immigration Yearbook of 2008, that show that as enforcement increases, voluntary departures decrease. So the total number of people going back has decreased tremendously. What is that? Enforcement backfiring. So by all the measures in our broken immigration law system that are closing the borders and keeping people in, we are having actually the problem, the total population of undocumented migrants increase. There are fewer people coming in now because of the economic situation, but there are far fewer people going back home, and those who are already here and who have debt back home, who there's unemployment, but they have nothing to go back to, are digging in and weathering the storm, waiting for better times.
Are there any formal structures coming into play with this view?
I don't think that there are formal structures as such, but there are the studies that have started to surface very, very recently, as recently as 2008, by major research groups like the Migration Policy Institute in Washington, that show that circular migration is the way to go.
What specific places do you have in mind?
Well, one very compelling study deals with the Transnational Workers Program in the Philippines. The Philippines has had a very well-regulated guest workers program, if you will, for almost 30 years now. And they operate in 190 countries with protections for the workers. It's not a perfect system, but is the model internationally for what could be replicated elsewhere. There is also a program that is only about 5 years old between Guatemala and Canada. It started with a couple of hundred employees, and this is agricultural workers, and now they have over 5,000. They go, they work for 6 months, they return. They go back the next year, and so forth, with arrangement with employers, with grower associations, and so forth. Again, it's not perfect, but is much better than what we have now, which is no regulation at all. Because we have to understand that in the US, the H-2 program is not a program at all. That's a visa. It's a type of visa that has certain rules and regulations, but there is no management of the program and no oversight, none at the source country and certainly none in the United States. So we've had many cases of indentured work and in fact slavery of these undocumented workers who are vulnerable, and even those who come legally with the H-2 visas. It's happened that employers take their documents away from them, they restrict their movement, they force them to work for ridiculous salaries. The wage and hour theft is rampant, and they deduct even their working clothes and equipment from their paycheck. So there are models now, and what's interesting is that only since 2008 we have had a series of studies by the Migration Policy Institute, the Urban Institute, and others, documenting many of these processes and many of these programs, such that now we have the know-how on how to design a program that works. And that can be a mechanism that will also provide a path to legalization to those workers who are already here illegally. In fact, many workers who are now legal temporary workers under the H-2 visas were once undocumented workers, and they were good workers. They got their employers to sponsor them, they got their visas. So there is a historical precedent for that. And there is, of course, a bill called Ag Jobs that has broad bipartisan support, and that was very strong in 2007, but then it got derailed, distracted by this election, but that is likely to surface again. And this bill provides a path to residency and legalization for temporary workers who have come various times and who have a good track record. And it also has other provisions to protect the workers and to make the system, the guest worker program, work much better.